My character growth from my previous 2 videos about Drag Race España is about to be literary. Sorry it took me so long to make a new video, everyone. I was stuck where the trade left me. Both of those intros were so good, however will I choose? We'll just go with both. Hi, my name is Matthew, and you might know me as BLackBoy on TikTok, it's BLackBoy on Twitter, BLackBoy on Blue Sky, BLack_Matt_ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. And for those of you who don't, I'm a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. And today for my 23rd video ever, we are completing an informal trilogy of videos. A third video instituting a much needed catharsis after 2 very negative videos I made in the past because, well, after season 4, this franchise deserves it. We're talking about Drag Race España. But before we do, as always, we are giving a special shout out to the members of the BLackBoy membership program on YouTube. Thank you all for your continued individual support of my content, and if you're not a member, consider joining to get in on all the benefits, including early access to all future public videos, as well as member-exclusive YouTube shorts and long-form videos. Hope to see you there. So for those of you who are not in the know of my lore, my YouTube career started with a rant video I made about Drag Race España Season 3. You ever seen a season of a TV show that pissed you off so badly, you had to make a whole YouTube channel just to roast it? Yeah, we're channeling that energy today. And since then, my one-sided beef with the season is never ending. It's my mortal enemy, and I will always find a way to drag it if I can, and trust I will many times in this video. About a year later, I then made a video about Drag Race España All-Stars. And though I thought that that was a relatively good season, and my review of it was not as scathing as my review of Season 3, I posited that one episode shook the very foundation of it in the fandom's mind so much that it soured the season as a whole to most viewers, making All Stars Drag Race España's second strike in a row, and I wasn't sure if the franchise could survive a third. And then Drag Race España Season 4 came out. And wow. What a game changer. So with that in mind, we will be talking about España 4 today, because with this season, España didn't just recover from a flop, it resurrected from it. And yes, I am well aware that the season aired almost a whole year ago, so may be obsolete to talk about now. But when have I ever been someone to not cover a season ages after it airs? I just thought that it was too juicy and too interesting to not talk about it. I need a haircut. Anyways, to fully appreciate what made España 4 work so well, we have to zoom back out a bit and understand the mess it inherited and the brilliance in how it pulled it off. As I have a whole video dedicated to what made España 3 a monumental debacle, I'll try to keep this section brief, but knowing me, I'll probably end up rambling. But the conclusion is still the same. After following up 2 of the best seasons of Drag Race ever, España 1 and España 2, both of which the fandom trumpeted for their masterful storytelling and inventive atmosphere within the RuPaul cinematic universe, España 3 irrevocably reversed any goodwill that the preceding 2 seasons had established for the franchise. Fraught with logistical inconsistencies, plagued with production favoritism, and littered with double standards, España 3 is heralded by many as one of the worst seasons there's ever been. And by many, I mean me. And many others. Now, I have to admit that some, emphasis on some, of those criticisms came from a place of bias. Because I am still a little embittered that my dream top 4 all went home across the span of 4 consecutive episodes. That is Visa, Paquita, Bestia, and Clover, all in that order, which at a certain point made me think that Atre's player personally took a look at my Instagram story just to decide who to eliminate next. But I will also die on the hill that many of my criticisms come from a place of valid reason, such as the double standards set in place when judging queens like Clover Bish, who was scrutinized for her imperfections in certain challenges, when other queens were rewarded for their imperfections, or when Supreme and or the producers decided to go against a word and rescinded a statement they made to the queens before a team challenge, when they said that the best/funniest pair would win the challenge. And later, when Petita and Clover both demolished the other teams, the win was rewarded to Petita and only Petita, and Clover was left in the dust. This isn't a joke, they just straight up decided to change their mind and somehow still lifted it in the edit, and they probably just did it to handicap Clover. A lot of my criticism revolves around Clover Bish, okay? And these shortcomings didn't just come from nowhere. They happened due to a production team that mismanaged the story storyline that they so desperately wanted to repeat. You see, España is known for having winner domination storylines, with queens who come in and curb stomp the competition in every aspect before snatching the crown in the end. And with the first 2 seasons doing this storyline so well, the producers wanted to create that lightning in a bottle for a 3rd time in a row. Except they miscalculated. The reason that those storylines worked so well in season 1 and season 2 is because they played out naturally with minimal producer intervention, which in turn allowed for queens besides the season winners to earn the spotlight when they deserved it. A good example is season 2, where Sharon was the designated steamroller, but she still had ample threats, namely Venedita Von Dash and Estrella Extravaganza, who both proved their worth in the competition. It felt that the team working on España 3 took this storyline by its horns and coerced it to follow a vision that only they saw fit, where Petita is their designated steamroller. But the result of that coercion led Petita to be the only competitive threat, as producers or judges withheld challenge wins from some queens who deserved them, or unceremoniously eliminated other queens who could have posed strong opposition to Petita whether it made sense or not. And all these remonstrations culminate into one overarching criticism I have, which is the España producers who were so determined to recreate the success of season 1 and season 2 ended up creating a bastardized and fabricated version of a recycled storyline that did a disservice to all queens involved. It truly left a sour taste in so many viewers' mouths, and it really turned a lot of people off from the franchise entirely. And though less severe, the criticisms for España All-Stars echoed those of España 3, relying on a steamroller storyline that by that point had run its course. And though in my opinion, Setlas rightfully earned most of her top placements, her win in the ball in episode 3 caused so much controversy that fans turned on the season as a whole. See my second video in the trilogy for more thoughts on that. So going into España Season 4, you can see that the situation for the franchise is dire. After facing 2 strikes in a row, they really needed to turn things around to avoid striking out. They needed a home run. And what we got? What they produced? Oh my god. It was out of the park. Come on, extended baseball metaphor. Drag Race España Season 4 exploded onto the scene, defying all expectations and redefining the legacy of the franchise. And the fandom took notice. Each episode consistently got a score of 8.5 or above on IMDb, and critics called it, quote, not only entertaining, but exciting and even refreshing. A much needed win for a franchise that at one point couldn't catch a break. And I, for one, was so happy to see the franchise reclaim its former glory. And I was in complete agreement with everybody who claimed so. These are the people who claimed so, by the way. That's not Stitch. Stitch claimed so, Pyukamuku claimed so, Totoro claimed so, Weavile claimed so, and then, of course, where is he? Greedent claimed so. Yeah, that's the council. So what exactly was it about the season that went so right? What about it worked so well? I, of course, am going to highlight those reasons for you. Per usual, we should emphasize the cast, which is one of the franchise's best. The season introduced 12 queens into the Drag Race pantheon. Shani La Santa, Porca the Club Kid, Dita Dubois, Calipasa, Miss Cristo, Angelita La Perversa, Maggie Giello, Mariana Stars, La Niña del Antro, Chloe Vitu, La Bella Vampi, formerly Vampirasian, and Le Coco. This is without a doubt one of the most talented casts that Drag Race has ever introduced, blending a unique collection of artists with different perspectives, art styles, and interpretations of their drag. Which I think leads into a bigger conversation about this season and Drag Race España as a whole about the franchise's ability to represent all forms of drag. In fact, it's one of the best at doing so. I mean, look at the composition of season 4. We have Mariana Stars representing a sort of pageant style, Miss Cristo representing a more alternative style, Porca the Club Kid literally putting the words Club Kid in her name, and Angelita La Perversa representing a style of drag that can best be described as a bold choice. And more. Joking aside, the portfolio of queens on this season gives almost like a taste test, almost like a beer flight of different art forms and styles that the fandom can attach itself to, which I think is so special. As we all know in this point, in the modern era of reality TV, Drag Race is the single most mainstream and commercial representation of drag in the world at the moment. And many people within the mainstream and commercial audience consider it, and by proxy World of Wonder, the arbiters of what good and acceptable drag is or should be. And sometimes the show presents a limited view of the art form, only promoting drag that fits a very specific mold of DRAG, dress resembling a girl. Blonde hair, perfect body, while minimizing or in some cases punishing other drag styles that don't fit that exact mold. But as many people who have experienced drag and other underground queer scenes in real time know, trans entertainers, ballroom performers, alternative artists have not only existed in the community since the very beginning, they were the ones who built the community from the ground up, brick by brick, especially trans women of color. Never forget that. And those same people who have experienced those scenes in real time, myself included, believe that the show needs to do a better job of celebrating those members of our community. I do not have that complaint for España 4, not in the slightest. We have so many icons that represent such varied facets of drag, and it made it so entertaining because it made the season feel like a review. Not like a review, but like a review, like REVUE, review. You know, like where we could see so many perspectives on the art form. The easiest way to capture that energy was, of course, on the runway, where the girls always had such unique takes on the prompts from each other, and in that we see some of the series' best. Look at the Premier Runway Challenge as a prime example, specifically the Salto al Futuro category, or Leap into the Future category. Compare the looks of Miss Cristo Meggiello. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Yeah, Meggiello. Okay, but it's I don't know if I have that ability to say that. Like Meggiello. It's like a softer J than that though. I'm not gonna be able to get it, so I'm gonna say I'm not gonna be able to get this. So Meggiello. Compare the looks of Miss Cristo Meggiello and Kelly Pasa. Cristo presenting herself as a geriatric dominatrix who is still embracing her sexuality even at her old age. Meggiello offering an out-of-the-box presentation as a goddess of time, and Kelly Pasa imagining her own ambitions as a performer in theater while also commenting on the loneliness of fame and notoriety. These are three very distinctive takes on a runway prompt as simple as leap into the future, and it's such a diverse portfolio that we only could have gotten because the show took it upon themselves to cast different types of drag performers. However, if we look beyond the runway, I think that production was well aware that they had this overall, like, diverse composition on its cast. And the reason that I say that is because the challenges that the show presented and the order in which they presented them over the course of the season played into each of the girls' strengths. Where a queen can excel in the ball, she might fumble in the girl groups, but inversely, where a queen might fumble in the ball, she would excel in the girl groups. And this is how we have one of the most balanced seasons in Drag Race ever, and consequently, how we have some of the most balanced track records ever. Drag Race España 4 finished its season with 8 different people having challenge wins, the most challenge winners of any season. Well, okay, until like All Stars 10 came out, but that was also a cast with like 18 queens, and they had a top 2 format in like the first 9 episodes, so I digress. In fact, it wasn't until episode 8 that we even had a queen win their second challenge, and that was Le Coco, the season's winner, who ended up being the only queen this season to have more than one challenge win. This means that in 8 out of 9 competitive episodes, we had a new queen at the top of the competition. And as I noted earlier, one of the biggest drawbacks of season 3 was that they made the winner too obvious because they jerry-rigged the competition to pull her ahead as pretty much the only viable competitive threat. And so by like episode 6, when she won her 3rd challenge, we all knew by then that she would be taking the crown. And that reduced any tension or anticipation for the remainder of the season as the other girls tried and failed to reach the same level that she did. But in España 4, they made sure that each queen had a balanced track record so that there would be no one person to really dominate the competition. Like, yes, Le Coco had the best track record, but it wasn't the best track record that we've ever seen, especially by España standards. Actually, fun fact, Le Coco has the same exact track record as Benedita Von Dash, the runner-up from España 2. 3 highs, 2 wins, and 1 bottom 2 placement. I didn't really have a point in saying that, I just thought it was a cool factoid. And also partly because it saddens me, because in a reality where Benedita Von Dash was on season 4, she probably would be a Drag Race winner by now, and it's gonna happen eventually, I promise. Benedita, please come back in any capacity. We would love for you to come back and compete again. Anyways, my point is that Le Coco is absolutely a deserving winner. There is no doubts about it. But the competition on España 4 was so well balanced that it wasn't until way late in the game before people even started to notice her pull ahead. And when you follow up 3 seasons, 4 if you include España All-Stars, where you can pinpoint the winner by episode 3, a season where everyone has a stake in the game for its entire run is a welcome and refreshing watch for the fans at home. And though this mostly can be attributed to the Queen's talent itself, we also have to commend the production team, a rarity, I know, for giving the contestants their flowers when they deserved it and refraining from manufacturing track records when it wasn't needed. Each queen got a win when it was called for, and each queen was in the bottom when it was called for. Although La Niña del Antro could have done without a bottom placement here or there, but I will keep my criticisms of that at bay. Don't get it twisted though, the production wasn't hands-off completely, because they absolutely maximized the storylines between the queens this season. And one way they did that was with the brand new twist that they brought on. Oh, that's right, we cannot talk about España 4 without talking about it. Drag Race España 4 introduced a twist that, at first glance, appears to be a convoluted mess, but in practice changed the dynamic of the season and elevated its storytelling there within. And it all revolved around one key figure. Well, key figurine. This is El Rascón de Reinas, or the Lucky Queen. Let me explain how it works. In episode 1 of season 4, the queens were presented with a cake, the titular El Rascón, traditionally eaten in Spain and Latin American countries, while also having inspirations in other countries around Europe as well. Rascón is a frosted yeast dough cake that is served during gatherings on the Epiphany holiday, otherwise known as Three Kings Day. Inside of the cake, many cultures bake in a hidden figurine. What the figurine is varies from culture to culture, from person to person, ranging from the Christ child to a minion. But the point is that it's a cute little trinket. The cake is served in slices, as most cakes are, to the guests. And whichever guest finds the trinket in their slice is said to be blessed with luck and prosperity for the coming year. This is the tradition that España 4 is spoofing from here. Except, instead of the little baby Christ, it's a little model of Supreme Deluxe, which is basically as close to Jesus as you can get. Anyways, the 12 queens were served a random slice of rascón, and inside each slice was a little opaque bag, one of which contained the lucky queen. The competitors were then instructed to open their bags in private and keep it a secret if they had the little figurine. Now, the lucky queen basically serves as a get-out-of-jail-free card for the queen who holds it whenever they're in the bottom. Here's a breakdown of how it functions. Each week, there will be a bottom 3, as is the case with most challenges on Drag Race. Supreme will announce one queen as safe, and the remaining 2 queens will lip-sync for their life. If one of the bottom 2 queens has the figurine, she has 10 seconds after the music starts playing to reveal she has it. If she successfully does this, the music will stop, and she will be declared exempt from the lip-sync. Her place would then be taken by the 3rd queen in the bottom who was previously declared safe, or who, in Drag Race track record terms, was low. This 3rd queen must now lip-sync against the 2nd queen who is still on stage. I know, when you hear it out loud, it sounds like a lot. It's really a Frankenstein's monster-esque conglomeration of the chocolate bar on season 14, the buzzer on All Stars 1, the immunity potion on season 16, and the golden beaver on Canada's Drag Race. And it all honestly sounds like it really could be too heavy to hold its own weight. There are so many ways it could go wrong, but there were also so many ways it could go right. The queen could give her figurine to a friend who she knows is going to be in the bottom so her friend can save themselves. The queen could let herself lip sync when she goes up against an opponent that she knows she can beat and save the figurine for a rainy day later down the line if she has to go up against somebody she knows she can't beat. Or she could never end up in the bottom and the twist would have gone to waste anyway. There's a whole smorgasbord of what could have happened with a twist like this. And folks, you have to understand that the figurine was played in the best possible way it could have. Like, genuinely, it couldn't have turned out better. Let me set the scene. Episode 7 featured an advertisement challenge where the queens were tasked in teams to promote 3 different products. The bottom 3 ends up being La Bella Vampi, Angelita La Perversa, and La Niña del Antro. Now, what's important to understand about this bottom 3 is that there is a very specific relationship between 2 of them that honestly has dominated the overarching narrative of the season. You see, Angelita La Perversa and La Niña del Antro have been butting heads multiple times for multiple weeks in a row, resulting in like a 7-episode feud feud where there was like a fight between them almost every single episode. And while other characters came in and out of the feud, such as Chloe Vitu or Mariana Stars or Le Coco, the primary adversaries were Angelita and La Nina. And though we know that there is more that happens in a season than an edit will typically show, we are still presented with these two within the narrative as opposing forces, with Angelita being set forth as the primary antagonist and La Nina as the protagonist. From the very beginning, Angelita leaned into a villain role, with cutting confessionals and a sharp tongue directed almost exclusively at La Nina. She openly mocked La Nina's inexperience as a performer, interrupted her in Untucked with backhand comments, and even accused La Nina of thinking the entire world revolved around her in episode 6. It got so bad that La Nina and Chloe Vitu alleged that Angelita threatened legal action if either of them talked about the fights when they got off the show. This tension led to an explosion on the main stage during critiques between Angelita and her two partners in the challenge, Chloe and, of course, La Nina Del Antro. And of course it followed them into Untucked, a 7-episode long feud that is finally boiling over. And we find ourselves at the end of the episode, with a bottom 3 of La Bella Vampi, Angelita, and La Nina. Supreme declares La Nina as safe, which at first disappoints the audience. Because we've had this season-long feud, and you're telling me that the one chance we finally get to see them duke it out, we can't? At that moment of tension, when Supreme saves La Nina and the possibility of a long-awaited showdown seems snatched away, it only intensifies the feud's grip on the season. Fans have been waiting for this moment for these queens to finally settle their differences, and this fake out felt almost like a way to sort of like keep the storyline like simmering, you know what I mean? It was Drag Race storytelling at its most devious, really dangling the confrontation in front of our faces. However, the music begins to play, Angelita begins to dance, La Bella Vampi unties her robe, reaches into her corset, and pulls out that tiny little figurine. In it of itself, the reveal of the Lucky Queen is a gag and so perfectly timed. Episode 7 was the perfect point in the season to reveal it. Not too early, not too late, but just right. And on a key queen, no less. La Bella Vampi was undoubtedly a mainstay player in España 4, being a prominent queen in confessionals, challenges, etc. And to see her receive the Lucky Queen felt so right, especially considering that it didn't go to waste on her. Because A, this is the only time all season that she's in the bottom, and B, she makes it all the way to the finale as runner-up. But the cherry on top, is that La Bella Vampi revealing that she has the queen means La Nina Del Antro would lip sync in her place. And more importantly, would lip sync against Angelita La Perversa. And not only lip sync against her, but send her home. Oh, her mind, La Bella Vampi, the producer you are. La Bella Vampi playing her Lucky Queen here, whether she intended to or not, was the catalyst of the climax and, by proxy, the resolution to a 7-episode rivalry that dominated the season's narrative. And so poetically, too. I cannot begin to describe to you all the narrative catharsis this season captured when La Nina got to send home Angelita La Perversa. Now, yes, I have been dogging Angelita a bit during this video, but I should clarify and make it abundantly clear that I, of course, wasn't there, and so cannot speak on what happened in that studio. There may have been many things left on the cutting room floor that we, the audience, may never know about. So please do not use this as an excuse to send hate Angelita's way. I'm analyzing this instead as a narrative that is meant for entertainment purposes on a television program, rather than an accusation of personal character. And as a narrative, as presented by the producers and editors, Angelita was the opposing force to La Nina Del Antro, who was indeed a de facto protagonist. And we know this is the case because otherwise they wouldn't have included so many blistering remarks from Angelita and showed so many kind and redeeming moments for La Nina. And thus the narrative deliverance of the latter defeating the former, the good defeating the evil, felt like straight from the ending of a fantasy novel by J.R.R. Tolkien. And it was all thanks to this silly little doll and the queen that played it. Now, of course, one of the primary things that we love about Drag Race is the drama, the tension, and that's what made a storyline like La Nina and Company versus Angelita so palpable and entertaining. But what many fans forget is that we watch the show too for its heart and its soul. While it can fuel our desires for like a cutthroat competition, it can also fulfill our needs for a positive outlook, because sometimes the fandom is so nihilistic and pessimistic that it really needs it. So I want to pivot here and say that Drag Race España 4 is one of the most joyful seasons of Drag Race that I have ever watched. Something about it felt like so celebratory, which is a quality that season 3 and honestly season 2 and season 1 lacked. Now, of course, that includes the cast, with all the judges and the fandom showering the girls with love, as I was getting at earlier. I mean, just look at the finale as an example, one of the most electrifying finale experiences that I've ever had as a fan. Maybe that's partly because it was España's first time recording its finale in front of a live audience, but there's still something about it, something that draws me to it, because I rewatch it at least once a month. And I think it is because you can feel the audience's jubilation at the queens when they come out on stage, because it reflects that of everybody at home watching too. I mean, Anna Locking's face at the end of the lip sync for the crown was pretty much a photocopy of mine after witnessing that for the first time too. I get you, girl. But the cast aside, I'm also talking more broadly, because the season as a whole felt like a celebration of Spanish culture, Spanish queer culture, and its allies. For example, one of the best moments of the entire season is in episode 4 when Supreme announced the runway for a night of 1,000 Anna Lockings. And it was a total surprise for Anna herself, and her reaction was priceless. Anna Locking has always been a strong ally in the LGBTQ+ community in Spain, having given talks about how drag inspires fashion, been a proponent for queer rights in the country of Spain, and dedicated an entire fashion line to ballroom culture, which, interestingly, season 1 winner Carmen Farala walked 3 years before she was on Drag Race, fun fact. Anna has always been connected to the community, and the community has always been connected to her, which has filtered into her love of the show and every single queen that walks down that runway. And for the show to dedicate an entire runway to her, which is undoubtedly her favorite part of each episode, was just so pleasant. And I'm so glad that the show did it. And it's just one moment in a long string of instances that make this season feel good. It felt like not only a return to form in terms of the competition, but a full commemoration of Spanish queer culture. I mean, don't even get me started on the season's makeover. Actually, no. I'm going off script. Get me started on the season's makeover. For this season's makeover, the show invited 5 drag legends from the Spanish drag community to be made up by the top 5. Forgive me on pronunciations, but we have La Patrick, Menel Dalgo, La Ochoa, Dali Drag, and Sergio Satanasa. And while yes, these girls were concerned with how making over these queens could help them win the challenge, the episode overall was more importantly about lifting up the queer elders in our communities. In a modern world where we can often take for granted how accepted LGBTQ+ people are in our societies, we often forget about those before us who single-handedly built that reality for us by the grit of their teeth. And this episode served as a conversation piece to allow those exact people to share their stories and educate the younger generations of Spain and the audience abroad watching. I remember watching the episode and being so enthralled by the stories of these queens from years gone by. I obviously am not Spanish, and I have very little familiarity with Spanish history, let alone Spanish queer history. And this makeover was such a valuable moment for me to hear firsthand accounts of the culture and how it's developed in the country over the years. One particular story that stuck out to me was the one that La Ochoa shared with La Nina del Antro about her arrival in Barcelona. How the city was kind of like constructed by the cabarets, the avant-garde, and how that art and that foundational queer culture was built brick by trans performers, such as La Gardenia and Juanito El Tranero, people who La Ochoa described as those, quote, who defied censorship. Learning the names of these elders, these trailblazers, offers almost like a sense of acknowledgement for the people who we, like the younger queer people, can sometimes forget, because they are the ones that we honor when we push forward in our fight for equality and progress for our community. And what a poignant way for a show, which is undoubtedly one of the largest queer platforms in Spanish pop culture, to celebrate the history that they share together. It really just tied up the season in a nice little bow and gifted it to the younger fans who might learn a thing or two about their journey here. And the 5 queens irrevocably deserved every single second of that standing ovation in the finale. So I guess all of that to say that Drag Race España is a healthy season. It's fun, yes, but it's educational and reverential, and I appreciate it with every ounce of my being for offering an experience that is not only entertaining, but celebratory, because that is why I love Drag Race, especially the international franchises. Drag Race España 4 was nothing short of iconic and almost perfect, and it was a massive rebound for the franchise as a whole. It single-handedly revitalized my faith in España overall, which is saying a lot because España 3 is public enemy number 1 in my book. And with España 5 on the horizon and its cast due to be revealed on September 7th, the franchise may have big shoes to fill. But after the success of its predecessor, the fandom waits for its return with bated breath, like a hero hero of old promised to the faithful. It's one of my most anticipated seasons of the year, and I will be seated with all of you the minute that it comes out. And that's all I had for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, a special shout out once again to my members. This video took a lot of love and care, so I hope you all enjoyed it as I have. Please let me know your thoughts on España 4 in the comments below and your expectations for Season 5. I look forward to discussing it with you all. And if you want to fight me in the comments instead, please just remember that I am only a gay person talking on the internet, and I am scared of confrontation.